We are trying to grow in the workforce, a number of women in executive positions and in all positions inside the company. And with the movies that we're making and with the protagonists that we're putting in the stories. So I get a huge amount of support with that. But we have 50% of our executive team are women. And 6 out of 8 of the people in my story group are women. We're making Star Wars movies, and the majority of the people involved in the development of those stories are women. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's making a huge difference in the stories that we're trying to tell.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it's making a huge difference in the stories that we're trying to tell.
I feel it is going to happen. We are going to hire a woman who's going to direct a Star Wars movie. I have no doubt. On the other hand, I want to make sure that we put somebody in that position who's set up for success. It's not just a token job to look out and try to find a woman that we could put into a position of directing Star Wars. I have a huge number of men who call me constantly and tell me how much of a Star Wars fan they are and how much they want to get involved in anything to do with Star Wars. I don't have a lot of women who call and have those conversations with me.
So here we are again on the cusp of yet another failed Disney Star Wars series on Disney Minus, their streaming platform that without Hulu wouldn't have a chance of being profitable. And that's the least of the problems. When it comes to Star Wars, most of the fans, the real fans, the fans that were there since the original film in 1977, have kind of noped out. They don't really care anymore. They don't have the fanaticism that is, well, basically the core of the word fan. They don't care. Star Wars is largely dead. And yet, the folks at Lucasfilm, like Kathleen Kennedy, who you just saw in a montage video, is leaning heavily into female domination of an IP that is largely dominated by males. And so, of course, since we're having a new series, we have to start the attack, or as the modern Disney calls it, marketing. And yet, before we jump into this wonderful IndieWire story, I say that with a lot of jest, let's jump into the fact that I have a website, beachpunk.us, where you can get fabulous merchandise that is suitable for everyone, men and women alike, all kinds of different types of items, whether it's cold or warm, wherever you are. I guarantee you'll find something there that you can wear or carry or use, because we've got it all. But let's talk a little bit about the Acolyte and the attacks that are already being levied on you, or whoever used to be Star Wars fans, because there aren't very many anymore. So this IndieWire story says, Kathleen Kennedy says, women who make Star Wars franchise installments struggle with a male fan base. Well, let's see. You just put a woman in charge of all of this with a whole lot of other female things in the background and a lot less war in your Star Wars, and also some nonsense like some kind of a cult or something like that. We'll get to that in a moment. But she says because the fan base is quite male-dominated, they sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal. Okay, let's take a look at the claims, because as we know, they usually are lying about those as well. And again, this is coming from IndieWire, but I think it's still originally sourced from a different article. I think it comes out of the New York Times article, which we'll take a look at in a moment or so. But as you can see here, she says, even Lucasfilm CEO is aware of the gender bias surrounding Star Wars fans. You mean the male-dominated franchise that you tried to turn into a girls' brand that has essentially continued to lose ground with every single installment released? Yes, and you're not alone, Kathleen. Look at what Kevin Feige managed to do with a very successful Marvel, because once Endgame had ended, so did most of the fan appreciation and the FOMO surrounding both of these powerhouse franchise IPs. Well, that's dissipated to nothingness. Anyway, we'll continue. During an interview with the New York Times, I was right, for the upcoming Disney Minus series, The Acolyte, Kennedy admitted that female filmmakers struggle with fan backlash to their respective film and TV franchise installments. Leslie Headland, the former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, you remember that guy? He, went to jail a lot and, was, kind of the center of like a Time's Up Me Too kind of, conflagration moment. And, she may have contributed to his ability to do some of this. Maybe, right? Anyway, saying operating within these franchises now with the social media and the level of expectation, it's terrifying. Is it really? I think male filmmakers who were still masculine could probably conquer this whole problem. You lack a lot of those things, Miss Kennedy. So I think Leslie has struggled a little bit with it. Who knows? But I think a lot of the women who step into Star Wars struggle with this a bit more. And as you saw by the montage that I had in front of this, which will also be a short and, here on YouTube and probably in other places, you kind of take away the fact that she foisted this upon everybody in a way that, wasn't very respectful and was rather intentional. Anyway, because of the fan base being so male-dominated, they sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal, which, again, is a reference to the sub-headline. So, per the New York Times, and I agree because I've been one of those that have been calling this the series, dubbing it the Acolyte, for having, it's not because of that. It's not because, it's because of all of that. Not just the diverse cast, but all of the overt intersectional feminism, obviously all the woke elements, the perceived injustice craptasticness that you still think exists in this Western nation, and everything else, including gender ideology, makes you an identitarian. And, in a way of going about that is to, be quite fascist about it. Anyway, we'll keep going. They say Headland has received direct criticisms from so-called fans. So-called fans, no. Fans are fanatics. Those are the people who are truly invested in the franchise. You came along and screwed with it. So you're going to get criticism. Despite the series not having premiered yet, because, and I'll say this as politely as possible, you told us what it was going to be. Now, I apologize in advance. This video is going to be a little longer than normal because I think I'll probably get a little bit ranty. Anyway, my belief is that storytelling does need to be, here it is, representative of all people. No. Storytelling needs to be good. Full stop. You can tell stories that exist in just one demographic group that are well done, excellent dialogue, well crafted, beginning to end, enjoyable, escapist. But you are dead set on inserting things where they wouldn't naturally exist and are not representative of the material that's out there in the world. At least not until you changed it with garbage from Project Luminous, which became the Let's Get High Republic, which is where this craptasticness is born. And we're about to see the full fruits of the female-dominated everything from the story group to the executive position suite that you've stacked the deck against, the original fans. You wonder why they're walking away. You wonder why they're criticizing you. It's because, you've basically turned a steak restaurant into a vegan establishment. That's not what the fans asked for. So Headland also spoke out on the surrounding fan hate she's received. I don't care. As a fan myself, I know how frustrating Star Wars storytelling in the past has been. Really? I felt it myself. I stand by my empathy for Star Wars fans. Really? But I want to be clear. Anyone who engages, here it is, here's your attack, kids. Bigotry, racism, or hate speech, I don't consider a fan. All of those words for somebody like her, an ideologue of her ilk, just means if you don't agree with me and what I'm doing, then you're all of these bad things. You're destroying the meaning of these things. And hate speech is just speech, by the way. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's hateful actions. But you can hate other people. It happens. I mean, if somebody runs over your kid in the street, you probably hate them. That's an okay feeling. If somebody drops carpet bombs, a city that you family in and they are all killed, you're going to have a measure of hate. It's reasonable. Hate's an emotion. You can try to be empathetic, but you cannot follow up the words, I stand by my empathy for Star Wars fans, and then follow it up with a bunch of garbage that means, well, you're all these other bad things. Doesn't work. Hedlund admitted that creating the original story for The Acolyte was like working on the razor's edge due to more than a half-century spanning lore for the films. Well, not just the films, but the extended universe, which you borrow heavily from whenever you feel like it. It's even referenced in a Screen Rant article that recently dropped. But you don't honor the source material and the fans that basically created the vehicle with which you're delivering your monomaniacal neo-Marxism. So, anyway, continuing, you're thinking this is what people want from Star Wars. No. This is what a tiny, fractionally small group of people want from Star Wars, and you happen to be in it. You happen to live in the 15 to 30 blocks in Hollywood that basically thinks that this is the only thing that matters because you're an activist rather than almost anything else. And, well, you still haven't been called on the carpet for probably activities you put into motion, at least in some small way. Anyway, this is what people don't want. It can mess with your head during the creative process. I had to give myself the forgiveness. I have to forgive myself for making this single-minded, identitarian political message that other people are going to call propaganda correctly. And as an artist, to fall off the razor as long as I got back up. That was the promise to myself. So the Force Awakens, I don't care about J.J. Abrams. Let's skip past his bologna sausage. That was it for the story. So let's get to the actual Times article, which is where all of this is pulled from. So if you're wondering what the source of all of this ilk is, it's this thing. The New York Times. Leslie Helen hopes the Force is with the Acolyte. She says, I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared. And again, they talk about the things that she's done seemingly well, like Russian Doll, which I thought the first season was okay. The second season was garbage, but it is what it is. I essentially cold called. Now, mind you, she, at a period of time when Disney was taking no outside pitches for anything, doesn't matter if it was Lucasfilm, Marvel, or whatnot, she basically cold called Lucas, and after a lot of conversations, found myself pitching a show, utterly elated, my ultimate career goal, the culmination of my fandom. At the same time, I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared. There's so much pressure. It's extreme. I've never done anything this big before. Well, most people haven't, to be fair. So look at this. On June 4, on Disney Minus, you can check out the debut of the $180 million series. That's 8 total episodes. It took 4 years to make. It attempts 2 feats at once, pleasing old school Star Wars fans, which it won't do, because they acknowledge here who seem unpleasable. Yeah, when you're, putting in a bunch of garbage. Neo-Marxism, identitarianism, identity politics, all the other things. while telling an entirely new story, one that requires no prior knowledge of Star Wars, and that showcases, here it is, women and people of color. There were women in Star Wars. There were people of color in Star Wars. Oh, by the way, white's a color, just so you know. At least it's not even white. It's like beige. Beige is a color. I mean, I people would say I'm white presenting. I don't really care. You can call me whatever you want. But, yeah, everybody's a person of color. And the only reason you use that is because you're scared of using the thing that, you know, extreme left side of the argument, people that now identify as progressives and Democrats used to call colored people. Yeah, that's going to get me dinged, but it's not untrue. For the faithful, the Acolyte serves up scads of Jedi, a franchise fundamental that the other live-action Star Wars TV shows have depicted sparingly or not at all. What now? There was a whole series on Obi-Wan. Everything is rooted in the Jedi. Jedi even shows up in Mandalorian. What are you talking about? The opening scene in The Acolyte takes place in an eatery crowded with colorful aliens. Yeah. Yeah, aliens. People who look different than each other. And Star Wars has always had that. It's a callback to the Mos Eisley Cantina from the first Star Wars movie in 1977, which I saw as a young person that year when it opened. Other shout-outs to core fans, we see you, we haven't forgotten about you, are sprinkled into the dialogue. In other words, we steal lines to try to make you think that this is good, like, may the Force be with you, and I have a bad feeling about this. There's one character that says that. I have a bad feeling about this. Yeah. At the same time, the Acolyte embraces what some people call New Star Wars. Disney Star Wars. Or Star Wars in name only. It's an era defined by diversity and expansion beyond the Skywalker saga. Diversity and expansion. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there was obviously a genocide at some point. You going to point that at the Empire? The people that you're always trying to make the heroes? So, Amanda Stenberg, a person who got this role for reasons that have been defined earlier in other places, a dreadlocked warrior who has a complicated relationship with a Jedi Master, played by, Lee Jung-Ye, from Squid Game. In his first English-speaking role, Jodie Turner-Smith plays the, check it out, lesbian leader of a regal coven of witches. Hello. That's very not Star Wars. All kinds of stuff in here, including an appearance, brief one, from Carrie-Anne Moss, who plays a steely Jedi named Master Indara. If you care about any of this, you can read the poorly received High Republic things if you wanted to. The Acolyte also breaks new ground behind the camera, while women have directed episodes of shows like The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Headland, who's, I guess, 43 years old, I guess that was important to put in here, is the first to create a Star Wars series. This thing is nuts. Disney announced The Acolyte in 2020. It's now 2024. And Star Wars is so powerful, people care, but the attention, I should say, also creates problems. This is true. Yeah. And in order to not break canon, they go before anything else and create canon that really is going to screw everything up in the future. Lots of technology will have been lost, all kinds of other things, including, obviously, as I mentioned before, a massive genocide. Anyway, the show is a mystery thriller because someone is killing Jedis. Set at a time when the Jedi are at their peak, the pre-Phantom Menace era. The only character in the Acolyte that previously existed anywhere was Vernestra Rowe, which is played by Leslie Headland's wife, by the way, Rebecca Henderson. Leslie wanted the show to be accessible, no homework needed. Okay, good with that. I keep rolling. There's nothing here that's going to be good. The Acolyte trailer, released in March, racked up 51.3 million views in its first 24 hours. Did it now? If that's the case, I wonder how many dislikes are on that trailer. Feel free to pause and take a look at another window on YouTube if you'd like. I seem to remember it was rather significant. So this is supposed to be a record for any live-action Star Wars. And the new fighting style, Force Fu, is in here as well. I can't believe any of this. Then they go on to revisit the idea that Kelly Marie Tran left social media because of fans. She actually left because of the media. Yeah, they are basically saying that that was driven by misogyny and racism, which it wasn't. Because there's actually, videos you can find in actual journalism you can find that actually talks about the fact that that's not why she left. But South Park was harshly attacking Kathleen Kennedy for good reason. With the recurring, put a chick in it and make her lame and interested in other, same-sex partners. Some trolls, no, people who actually care, have nicknamed the series the Wokalite, as I said before. Regardless, you can read through all of this if you choose, because it's on the New York Times, and if you don't have a subscription there, you'll have to go to the Wayback Machine with the link to get it. But this is going to be awfully wild. And again, Headland reveals what her pitch was. It's Frozen meets Kill Bill. And that's when Kennedy bought it on the spot. By the way, there's an interesting statement in here that I found that I think is a strange way to admit that there is some accountability that comes with this. She said, Star Wars has been a part of my personality since I can remember. So working on the show has been a dream. I had to take my shot. She paused for a moment and said, if it doesn't succeed, it's because of me. That's really scary to think about. It will be your fault. Anyway, on that note, I'm just going to say this. I don't have any hope for this series. I'm going to watch a couple of episodes. I'm going to review them. We'll see just how interested you are in those reviews. And that's kind of all I can do. I have Star Wars apathy in the worst way. I can't even bring myself to hate it anymore. To hate what's been done to the thing that kind of drove generations of people to want to be filmmakers and want to be creative and want to mimic or ape Star Wars. And there were a lot of those. I don't care. I care for you. So I'm going to review the show. I'm going to tell you what I think. And if it becomes clear to me that you're not interested, it will confirm everything that I believe, which is Star Wars is well and truly dead. And, the likes of Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger have killed it. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. I am genuinely curious. Do you think that Star Wars is dead? Do you think it's all over? Do you agree that there's been so much effort to put things in places to change the nature of Star Wars that in those changes, you've eliminated everything that made it good in the first place, that made it something people cared about, because you were too busy with the agenda than actually telling a good story? On that note, I'll say the following. Be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and don't fret about watching the show, because I'll do it for you. Until next time, see ya.